Novocaine. This has been a movie that's been sort of in the promotional cycle for the past couple of months now. The second film starring Jack Quaid to come out within just a couple of months of each other. We talked about
Hmm.
Companion, a few short weeks ago. That was a movie that he co-led with Sophie Thatcher, sort of a romance thriller, sci-fi thriller. Now this is more so a straight traditional action comedy starring Jack Quaid, who's coming in to kind of lead really his first movie on his own. He's done co-lead
Hmm.
stuff a lot. He was in Scream. He was in Companion. Of course, a lot of people have probably discovered him because of his work on The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. But to my knowledge, this is the first real movie he's been able to step up and really kind of put it on his shoulders and be the lead and potentially create a career for himself as a future leading man in this day and age in Hollywood. And so this story follows his character who has a very, very rare congenital disease that's actually a real disease. I didn't know this before the movie, but
Oh, it's
SEPA
real.
SEPA is
Oh,
a real
shoot.
disease, congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis. So this
Mm.
disease essentially basically does not allow one to feel pain. You walk through life and you don't feel pain. And I think another additional attribute is that it also decreases the amount of sweat that a person can produce as well. And so it's a very, very, very rare disease. But basically, this movie uses that as a tool to introduce us to this character that Jack Quaid is playing. That's somewhat of a romance story, but then also
Mhm.
transitions to being an action story and a comedy as well. And so this is a movie we got a chance to check out in theaters this past weekend. So with all of that out the way, I will pass it to you. What do you think about this brand new film, Novocaine?
I had a good time with Novocaine. This is one of those films where I think we take some of the ideas and movies that have been popular over the years, your John Wicks, your Nobodies, kind of that. I haven't been fighting or I don't fight, but now being forced to go fight some people idea and kind of flips it and changes it a little bit. Because what's cool about Novocaine is not only Jack Quaid's character, not only can he not feel things, it's not like he's some guy that can fight. He has never been trained. He's not somebody that probably is really good fighting on day to day. If he got into a fist fight, would he be that good? Probably not. He's just really not that guy. And so watching this film and seeing how I think they play on those things, they play on the fact that he's not good at fighting, was a really fun watch for me in all the ins and outs, of course, of him not being able to feel. I thought it was a really cool change and kind of twist to I think that the archetype that we've been getting in the past couple of years, man. But I thought it was a fun story, a good turn your brain off flick that had some really cool action. It is different when your character can't feel pain, because now you can do some things that you're not able to do, and I think they do a pretty good job at it of being creative and foreshadowing, I think, some of those cool moments throughout the film, man. Amber Midthunder comes in, she does pretty good. She does what she needs to do, but it really is between Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder, which I'd say the first third of the movie really isn't even an action film yet. It's kind of a rom com in a lot of different ways, trying to figure out how he's going to operate this love or this crush that he has on Amber Midthunder's character. And they spent a good amount of time on that, probably a little bit too much, but I did like, I think, what they were doing, trying to establish that relationship in the beginning, man. So man, I thought it was a fun film. I like being able again to have fun with all these different nuances. I thought some of the stuff was written pretty decent, and some of the stuff was also cheesy and corny, but in a lot of ways a good way for me. But yeah, I had a really good time with this film, and yeah, if we can do any more spins on this, I don't know if we can. This might be one of those genres that's slowing down a little bit. Now it's like, are you John Wick? If you ain't John Wick, what are we doing? But I think if you're able to put out something like this with a little bit more twist on it and make it make sense, and I'm still here for it, man. We need to continue to have, I think, these B movies that can fill a void, and I think Novocaine filled a void of, again, just having fun and bringing something new to the table.
I like Novocaine. I had a good time with it, largely because of Jack Quaid. He has a lot of charisma, a lot of personality. He plays this character really, really well, like this kind of frazzled guy who finds himself in a situation he doesn't know how to handle. And this trope and this device of somebody sort of discovering and learning their potential, and I guess in this case their quote unquote powers, that's a trope that often can work in movies where we're kind of right alongside with them, where it's like we don't even know what we're capable of. We don't even know what we can
Mm-hmm.
do with this ability, so to say. And a lot of the movie is focused on that once we do get into the action beats later in the film, where you're seeing how how this particular disease that he's lived with, although it's been somewhat of a disability for him, somewhat of a debilitating situation for him that's caused him fear in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
situations, we start to see that pivot and that change to where he uses it as a benefit, and he learns like, oh well, this can work in this situation, I can try this out, and oh, this is actually really great for me and I can use this here. And that stuff is really good. And what I do give this movie a lot of credit for on the action side of things is kind of the creative ways that we get to that place where he's discovering just all the ways that he just cannot feel pain. There's just so many like
Mm-hmm.
really, really creative kills, creative injuries, just the stuff that he goes through, so that by the end of the movie, he's literally in a body cast. Like that is the end result of the movie, because he's gone through so much. Because although he
Mm-hmm.
might not feel pain, that doesn't mean that he doesn't wound, that doesn't mean that he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
bleed, and that doesn't mean that he can't die. He just doesn't feel it. So I just like the journey of just seeing the gradual evolution of the physicality of his role and where it went. But the best part of this movie to me is the rom-com stuff. I like
Mm-hmm.
that the most, the stuff between him and Amber Midthunder, because they have a lot of great chemistry with each other.
They did.
And the first
Mm-hmm.
half of this movie just sort of acting as a rom-com, and you're seeing how their relationship develops and evolves, and them growing to really, really like each other. And just that constant back and forth of that interaction, that stuff I really, really liked a lot. And then when it gets into the more traditional action comedy beats that I think we kind of expected, it's okay. It's an okay movie by that point, because it does, I think, lose a little bit of the energy. Because I think with a film like this, when you see the trailer, when you see the premise, even when you see the poster, they're very vibrant. They're over the top. It's really a
Mm-hmm.
crazy premise when you think about it. But I find that a lot of action movies these days, they don't really go for it. They don't take it all the
Mm.
way to the levels that I think that they could take it. We used to have an era like that. We used to have a time where those action movies would just go balls to the wall, complete absurdist, over the top bonkers. And I love those movies. Those are
Yeah.
true traditional B action movies. And I think a movie like this, if we modeled it after a Jason Statham movie like Crank, and if we
Crank is
edited
crazy.
it that
Yeah.
way, if it was shot that way, if it had that frenetic energy, I think it would have worked out better. But a lot of the action in this movie, it's a little bit reserved. It's a little bit safe at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking like, just add more juice to it. Just go all the way with it.
Mm-hmm.
Go completely bonkers and crazy with it. And at times we kind of get there. There's a moment in the injury that he sustains to his hand that is just like gruesome. It's like,
It's
and you
nasty.
just have to look at it the entire rest of the movie. It's pretty crazy. But I think we needed more just like over the top silly shit like that. And it feels like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
action movies these days, they tend to play it a little bit more safe. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious as to why that's the case. And I think it's probably attempts at realism, attempts
Yep.
at, trying to relate to characters. All those different things are factors. And so it did lose some steam for me. And eventually I'm like, okay, this second half of the movie, it's not as interesting as the first half, but I do appreciate that they spent as much time as they did with the character development and just that relationship between him and Amber Midthunder, because I don't think the rest of the movie would even work if they didn't get
Mm-hmm.
that stuff off to a good place. Is John Wick
Uh-huh.
the most influential movie of the 21st century at this point? We have countless ripoffs,
It's
countless
crazy.
ripoffs. They come out like every month now. I think every filmmaker setting out to make an action movie is trying to resemble John Wick. Would you say that that's probably at the top of the list in terms of 21st century movies, that might be the most influential? Because ever since 2014, man, we can just go down the list and just name the countless amount of ripoffs and imitations that have tried to establish their own worlds and characters in that same vein.
Yeah, I'd say so, man. I definitely would, especially at least new property, of the 21st century for sure. Because there's been, like you said, there's just so many ripoffs and spinoffs, and I know we're not done. You know what I mean? Like I know we're going to see something else either come out later this year or next year that we just are not thinking about or knowing about. But yeah, absolutely, man. We've been talking about so many movies, I think, on this podcast that surround John Wick, whether it's what's that movie, Monkey Man, or whether it's we've talked about Nobody before. We're just all of those films. Just kind of crazy to see how we're back here again. Like, yeah, it's another John Wick spinoff. It's different, but it's the same. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I definitely think it's in the running for sure of most influential films of the 21st century.
It's at least top.
At
It's
least
top two to me. Top two to
top
me.
two.
That movie, John Wick and Get Out, are the most influential of
Yeah.
what we've gotten in the
Mhm.
past 25 years, because just the amount of filmmakers that try to do something in those same veins of those films, um, it's just countless. It's just like a rotating new assembly line of filmmakers, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think this is just like a
Right.
part of Hollywood. When something works, they try to
Hmm.
replicate that success. I mean, Die Hard has been replicated for the past 35, 40 years almost. Like we
Yep.
continuously get more Die Hard ripoffs and remakes and things of that nature, and so it's actually a compliment and a testament to how well those movies work. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell because we're still kind of in it. We don't have
Hmm.
25 years removed, but John Wicked's been around for 10 years. Get Out's been around for about 8 years now. We have a lot of time
Hmm.
removed to say like, yep, that resembles that resembles that. We see what they were trying to go for with that type of style and tone. I would also add in that conversation, not necessarily because of the types of movies that are made, but just like what it's meant for Hollywood, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because Quentin Tarantino basically discovered this whole new generation of Hollywood within that movie. Like everybody kind of got their start there, whether it's
Mm.
Sydney
I know
Sweeney,
what you mean.
Austin
Hmm.
Butler,
Yeah.
Julia Butters, Margaret Qualley, like basically all the Mikey Madison, like
Yep.
everybody that's like made a new name and a new career for themselves, and they're starting to become
Hmm.
stars. They got their start in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
Very
just
true.
from a talent standpoint, I think that's going to be one of the more influential movies. But in terms of films being just replicated genre, sort of just always sort of repeating itself and repeating familiar tropes and styles and things of that nature, John Wick, Get Out, those two, they kind of stand head and shoulders, I think above a lot of their competitors for me. But some of them are good, some of them are bad. That's what we're here for, to decipher which ones work and which ones don't. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new action comedy film Novocaine. If you check out this movie, hit us up and let us know what you think about it.